The day I reminded them who really owned everything. If you've ever been underestimated because of your age, you're going to want to hear this story. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because this tale of revenge is one you won't forget. And comment below, where are you listening from? I love hearing from all of you around the world. My name is Victoria, and at 72 years old, I've learned that silence can be the most powerful weapon you possess. For 3 years, I lived in what my daughter-in-law Laura called their mansion, enduring her condescending smiles, her passive-aggressive comments, and her treatment of me like I was some charity case they'd graciously taken in. But that Tuesday afternoon in September, when she stood in the marble foyer of that beautiful home surrounded by her equally vapid friends, pointing at me with her manicured finger and declaring me a poor old useless woman living free in our mansion, something inside me finally snapped. Not with anger, mind you, but with a cold, calculated clarity that comes from decades of building an empire while people like Laura were still learning their ABCs. Let me take you back to the beginning, to help you understand how deliciously perfect my revenge truly was. My late husband Richard and I built our wealth from absolutely nothing. We started with a small investment property in 1975, a rundown duplex that everyone said was a waste of money. Richard handled the renovations while I managed the books, found tenants, and slowly, methodically, we expanded. One property became 2, then 5, then 20. By the time the real estate boom hit in the 80s and 90s, we owned commercial buildings, apartment complexes, and yes, several mansions across 3 states. Richard was the face of our empire, the one who schmoozed with contractors and city planners, but I was the brain, the strategist who knew every single asset we owned, every mortgage, every tenant agreement, every LLC and trust fund. When Richard passed away 5 years ago, I inherited everything. The grief nearly destroyed me. 47 years of marriage don't just disappear without leaving a gaping hole in your soul. My son Marcus, my only child, seemed genuinely concerned about me during those dark months. He'd call every day, visit every weekend, and when he suggested I come live with him and Laura, I thought perhaps it was exactly what I needed. A chance to be close to family, to not rattle around alone in the estate Richard and I had shared for so many years. What a naive old fool I was. The mansion Marcus and Laura lived in was one of my properties, though I'd never explicitly told Laura that detail. Marcus knew, of course. He'd grown up understanding the family business, even if he'd chosen to pursue a career in marketing rather than real estate. I'd gifted them the house as a wedding present 7 years ago, transferred into a trust that allowed them to live there indefinitely. But here's the thing about trusts, I'd set them up with very specific conditions, and I maintained control over certain aspects. They lived there rent-free, yes, but the property taxes, maintenance, the staff salaries, the utilities for that massive 10,000 square foot home, all of that came from various accounts I managed. Laura never worked a day in her life after marrying Marcus. She came from money herself, or so she claimed, though I'd done my research and discovered her family's wealth was more reputation than reality, a crumbling legacy held together by maxed-out credit cards and strategic social climbing. She saw Marcus as her ticket to the lifestyle she believed she deserved, and I was simply the old woman who came with a package deal. The first year living with them wasn't terrible. Laura maintained a veneer of politeness, though I could see the irritation in her eyes whenever I'd join them for dinner, or when my belongings occupied space in her home. The second year, the mask started slipping. She'd make comments about how I should consider a retirement community, how I probably missed having people my own age around, how much easier it would be for everyone if I had my own space. I smiled and nodded, watching, learning, understanding exactly what kind of person my daughter-in-law truly was. By the third year, she'd stopped pretending altogether. She'd talk over me at family gatherings, exclude me from events, and make jokes at my expense. Marcus, spineless as he'd become under her influence, would give me apologetic looks but never defended me. Not once. His father would have been ashamed, but then again, his father had never coddled Marcus the way I perhaps had. That September afternoon, Laura was hosting what she called her ladies' luncheon, a monthly gathering of the most pretentious women I'd ever had the misfortune of encountering. I'd been in my suite, the west wing of the house that had become my sanctuary, reading a biography of Rockefeller, when I realized I'd left my reading glasses in the sunroom. I made my way downstairs, moving slowly as my arthritis had been acting up, using the handrail Richard had insisted we install years ago when we'd still owned this house. As I reached the foyer, I heard the laughter echoing from the conservatory where Laura held court. I should have turned around, retrieved my glasses later, But something made me pause. Perhaps it was the particular shrillness of Laura's voice, that tone she used when she was performing for an audience. "Honestly, darlings, it's like running a nursing home," she was saying, and the other women tittered. "She shuffles around, leaving her things everywhere, commenting on how we run our household." Our household? Can you imagine? I stepped closer, staying just out of sight behind the archway. "Why don't you just put her in a home?" one of the women asked. I recognized the voice, Bethany, a real estate agent who'd once tried to poach one of my commercial properties for a client, not knowing I was the owner. "Marcus won't hear of it," Laura sighed dramatically. "He's ridiculously sentimental about his mother. But honestly, having this poor old useless woman living free in our mansion, it's becoming unbearable. She contributes nothing, just exists here like some relic we're obligated to maintain." The laughter that followed was like gasoline on a fire I'd been carefully banking for 3 years. I felt my hands shake, not with weakness, but with the adrenaline of absolute certainty about what I was about to do. I pulled out my phone. "Yes, I'm 72 and quite adept with technology. Thank you very much." And made a call to my estate attorney, James, who'd been managing my affairs for 30 years. "James," I said quietly, "I need you to stop every payment related to Property 743. Immediately. Everything. Property taxes, utilities, staff salaries, maintenance accounts, the landscaping service, the pool company, everything. I want it all frozen within the hour." "Victoria, are you certain?" James knew better than to argue, but he had to ask. "Completely certain." Then I stepped into the conservatory. 8 women turned to look at me, their faces showing varying degrees of surprise and barely concealed contempt. Laura's expression was priceless, that frozen smile of someone caught saying something they shouldn't, though she recovered quickly. "Victoria, we didn't hear you come down. Can we get you anything? Some tea perhaps?" Her voice dripped with false sweetness. I looked at each woman in turn, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then I pulled out my phone again and made a show of reviewing it. "I've just done something rather important," I said calmly, my voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. I called my attorney and instructed him to stop every payment, effective immediately. The confusion on their faces was delicious. Laura's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, what payments?" I looked directly at her, and in that moment, I let her see everything I'd been hiding for 3 years. The intelligence, the power, the absolute control I'd maintained while she thought I was just a feeble old woman dependent on her charity. "Every payment that keeps this mansion running, dear. The property taxes, that's $48,000 annually if you're curious. The utilities for a house this size, about $6,000 per month. The salary for Maria, your housekeeper, and Joseph, your groundskeeper. And the pool maintenance crew that comes twice weekly. The security system monitoring, the landscaping service, the HVAC maintenance contract." Shall I continue? Laura had gone very pale. "I don't understand. Marcus handles all of that through the household account." "No," I said softly, "Marcus thinks he handles it. But that household account? It's actually one of my subsidiary accounts. The money that flows into it each month, the money that's paid every single bill for this property for the past 7 years, all comes from the Victoria Ashford Trust. Every single penny." Bethany, the real estate agent, had suddenly become very interested in her champagne glass. I saw recognition dawning on her face. She was starting to piece together who I actually was. "Furthermore," I continued, warming to my subject now, "this mansion, this beautiful expansive property with its 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, pool, tennis court, and 3-acre lot, is owned by Ashford Properties LLC. Would you like to guess who owns Ashford Properties?" Laura's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The other women had gone completely quiet, the social dynamics of the room shifting so dramatically, I could almost feel the air pressure change. "That's impossible," Laura finally whispered. "Marcus said, 'This is our house. You gave it to us. I gave you the right to live here through a trust that I control. I paid for everything because you're family, and I believed in supporting my son and his wife. But I never, not for one moment, relinquished ownership. And the terms of that trust include a clause that allows me to revoke the arrangement if the living situation becomes untenable.'" Marcus chose that moment to arrive home from work. I heard his car in the driveway, the familiar sound of his Tesla pulling into the garage. He appeared moments later, loosening his tie, smiling at the assembled women before noticing the atmosphere in the room. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between me and Laura. "Your wife," I said calmly, "just called me a poor old useless woman living free in your mansion. So I've terminated all financial support for this property, effective immediately." I thought it was time she learned exactly whose mansion this really is. I've never seen my son look so horrified. The color drained from his face as understanding crashed over him. "Mom, no. Please." Laura didn't mean. Didn't mean what, Marcus? Didn't mean to humiliate me in front of her friends? Didn't mean the 3 years of snide comments, the disrespect, the constant suggestions that I'd be better off warehoused in some facility? Or didn't mean to get caught? Laura had started crying, mascara running down her carefully made-up face. "I'm sorry, Victoria. I'm so sorry. I was just talking. I didn't think." "That's precisely the problem, Laura. You didn't think. You've never thought about where your comfortable life comes from, who makes it possible, or what you'd do if it disappeared." Bethany cleared her throat. "Victoria Ashford. You're the Victoria Ashford. Ashford Properties. Oh my God. I tried to buy the Riverside Commercial Center last year, and I declined your client's offer because it was insulting," I finished. "Yes, that was me." The other women were frantically Googling on their phones now. I could see them finding the articles, the business profiles, the estimates of my net worth. The poor old useless woman was actually worth approximately $43 million. Where are you listening from? Drop a comment and let me know if you've ever had a moment where you got to prove someone completely wrong about you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. What happens now? I'd been thinking about this moment for the past 3 years, planning for various scenarios, and I knew exactly what I wanted. Now you both learn what it's like to actually manage your own lives. The property taxes are due in 6 weeks. That's $48,000 you'll need to find. The utilities bill will arrive at the end of the month. Maria and Joseph's salaries are due on Friday, and I imagine they'll quit when they don't get paid, so you'll need to learn how to clean this house and maintain 3 acres yourselves. The pool will turn green by October without proper maintenance. You'll need to figure out security, heating and cooling, all of it. We can't afford that, Laura whispered. Marcus's salary. Marcus makes $140,000 a year at a job he got through connections I provided. After taxes, that's about $95,000. This house costs approximately $120,000 annually to maintain properly. So no, you can't afford it. You'll need to make some difficult decisions. Are you evicting us? Marcus asked, and I heard something in his voice I hadn't heard in years, actual fear. I let the question hang there for a long moment. This was my son, after all, my only child. Despite everything, despite his weakness in standing up to his wife, I loved him. But love doesn't mean enabling, and I've been enabling this situation for far too long. I'm giving you a choice, I said finally. You can stay here, but you pay your own way. All of it. Property taxes, utilities, maintenance, everything. I want a formal lease agreement, market rate rent, and you cover all expenses. Or, I have a 3-bedroom condo in the Riverside development that's currently vacant. 1,500 square feet, 2 bathrooms, modest but comfortable. I'll let you live there rent-free, and I'll cover the basic utilities. But Laura, you'll need to get a job. An actual job. And Marcus, you'll both need to learn to live within your means. A condo? Laura's voice was shrill with disbelief. We can't possibly. Then pay for the mansion, I interrupted. Those are your choices. Oh, and there's one more option. I could sell this property. It's worth approximately $4 million. I'd net a considerable profit, and you'd have 60 days to vacate. The market's quite strong right now. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the women who'd been laughing at me 20 minutes ago sat frozen, watching this family drama unfold. Laura turned to Marcus, desperation in her eyes. Tell her she can't do this. This is our home. We have rights. We have the rights she gave us, Marcus said quietly, finally showing some backbone. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have stopped Laura, should have stood up for you. I've been a coward, and I let my wife disrespect you in your own property. I understand if you can't forgive that. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Perhaps there was hope from my son after all. I can forgive it, I said softly, but I won't enable it anymore. You're 50 years old, Marcus. It's time to stand on your own feet. Both of you. Bethany and the other women were gathering their things, sensing this was no longer appropriate entertainment. They scurried out like mice, though I noticed several of them trying to hand me business cards on their way out, suddenly very interested in cultivating my acquaintance now that they knew who I really was. I let their cards fall to the floor. When they were gone, I sat down across from Marcus and Laura. I'm moving out, I announced. I have several properties. I think I'll take the penthouse downtown, the one with the river view. I've been managing my empire from a laptop in a bedroom suite, and it's time I had a proper office again. You'll have 1 week to decide which option you're choosing. The condo, Marcus said immediately, before Laura could protest. We'll take the condo and Laura will find work and we'll figure out how to live like normal people. And Mom? I'd like to. Could we maybe have dinner? Just us? I want to understand the business better. I want to learn what you do, how you built all of this. I should have asked years ago. I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time that afternoon. I'd like that very much. Laura was crying harder now, but these were different tears, shame perhaps, or the genuine realization of how close she'd come to destroying everything. Victoria, I don't know how to apologize. I've been horrible. I judged you, dismissed you, and I was so wrong about everything. Yes, you were, I agreed. But Laura, I'm going to tell you something important. You're 38 years old, you're intelligent, you're organized. I've seen how you manage your social calendar and plan your events. Those are valuable skills. You could work in event planning, hospitality management, real estate staging. You've just been too comfortable to try. This is your chance to discover who you are when you're not just Mrs. Marcus Ashford. She looked at me with something like hope. You really think I could do those things? I know you could. Whether you will is up to you. Over the next week, I moved my belongings to the penthouse, a glorious 3,000 square foot space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. I set up a proper office, hung my favorite photographs of Richard, and felt more like myself than I had in 3 years. Marcus and Laura moved into the condo, and I watched from a distance as they adjusted to their new reality. Laura got a job as an assistant event planner at a local hotel, starting at $40,000 a year. She hated it at first, the early hours, the demanding clients, the physical exhaustion. But within 3 months, I heard from Marcus that she'd planned a wedding that got written up in a major magazine, and the bride had tipped her $2,000. She was discovering her own worth, earning her own money, and according to Marcus, she'd never been more alive. Marcus started having dinner with me every Tuesday. I taught him about the business, about property management and tenant relations and market analysis. He had his father's charm and my analytical mind, and I realized he'd actually be quite good at real estate if he applied himself. I began bringing him to property viewings, teaching him the fundamentals I'd learned 50 years ago. 6 months after that fateful afternoon, Laura showed up at my penthouse unannounced. I almost didn't recognize her. Gone were the designer clothes and excessive jewelry. She wore simple slacks and a blouse, minimal makeup, and carried a portfolio. I wanted to show you something, she said nervously. I've been promoted to senior event planner, and I've saved $15,000. It's the most money I've ever earned myself, and I wanted you to know that you changed my life. I was useless, Victoria. You were right about that. Not old, not poor, but useless. I contributed nothing to the world. Now I do, and it feels incredible. I invited her in, made tea, and looked through her portfolio of events she'd planned. She was genuinely talented, creative in ways I'd never imagined. I'm proud of you, I told her, and meant it. I was thinking, she said hesitantly, I've been learning about real estate, about property values and development. I wondered if you might consider, if you'd let me help with some of your properties, the staging, the presentation. I have ideas for the vacant units, ways to make them more appealing. I do it for free just to learn. I studied her carefully. This wasn't the shallow woman who'd mocked me 6 months ago. This was someone who'd been broken down and rebuilt herself, who discovered that her worth came from what she contributed, not what she possessed. Not for free, I said. I'll pay you consulting fees, market rate. And if your ideas work, if you help me rent units faster or for higher prices, we'll discuss a more permanent arrangement. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on us even when we deserved it. If you're enjoying this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I love hearing from you all. Comment below and tell me where you're from and what you would have done in my situation. That was 2 years ago. Today I'm 74, still managing my properties, still building my empire. Marcus has joined the business full-time. He left his marketing job and now manages several of my commercial properties. He's good at it, better than I expected. Laura runs a successful event planning business and consults for Ashford Properties on staging and presentation. She's increased our rental income by 18% through her design innovations. They still live in the condo, though they could afford something larger now. Marcus tells me they like it. It's theirs, earned through their own work, and it means something because of that. They're saving for a down payment on their own house, something they'll purchase themselves. As for the mansion, I sold it last year for $4.2 million. The new owners are a lovely young family with 3 children who actually appreciate what they have. I took the profit and invested it in a new apartment complex in a developing neighborhood. 30 units that will provide housing for working families at reasonable rates while still generating solid returns. Every Tuesday, Marcus, Laura, and I still have dinner together. We talk about business, about family, about life. Laura brought up having children recently, and I saw Marcus's face light up at the idea of making me a grandmother. Perhaps when that happens I'll gift them a proper house, but this time they'll understand exactly what it means and they'll appreciate it. People ask me if I regret how I handled that afternoon, if I was too harsh. I tell them absolutely not. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their worst behaviors and force them to discover their own strength. Laura didn't need my money. She needed to find her purpose. Marcus didn't need a free mansion. He needed to earn his own way and discover his capabilities. And me? I didn't need to be tolerated and pitted in a mansion. I needed to be Victoria Ashford again, the woman who built an empire from nothing, who survived loss and came back stronger, who knows her worth and demands respect. That day in the conservatory, when I made that phone call and watched their faces change from mockery to horror, wasn't really about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself, establishing boundaries, and teaching the people I love that comfort without contribution creates emptiness, while challenge with support creates character. I sleep well at night in my penthouse overlooking the river. I wake each morning with purpose, managing my properties, mentoring Marcus, watching Laura flourish. And sometimes when I'm reviewing contracts or analyzing potential investments, I think about Richard and smile, because I know he'd be proud of how I handled things, not just the business but the family too. The best revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. I didn't destroy Laura and Marcus that day. I gave them the opportunity to become the people they were capable of being. They took that opportunity and ran with it. And now we have a relationship built on mutual respect, rather than obligation and resentment. So to anyone listening who feels dismissed, underestimated, or disrespected, especially those of you of a certain age who society tries to render invisible, remember this. Your worth isn't determined by how others see you. It's determined by what you know about yourself and what you've built. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop carrying people who refuse to walk on their own. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of triumph, revenge, and redemption. And don't forget to comment below. I want to hear where you're listening from, and if you've ever had to make a tough choice to teach someone an important lesson. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and demand the respect you deserve. Until next time, this is Victoria reminding you that the best revenge is living well, and sometimes making sure others finally see the truth.